December 18th, 1972. 35,000 foot over Hanoi. Captain Robert Certain is sitting in a compartment underneath the cockpit of a B-52G that the crews call the Black Hole. No windows, no sky, just the green glow of radar scopes, stale oxygen through his mask, and the vibration of 8 engines humming through the floorboards into his spine. If the aircraft is hit, his ejection seat fires downward. He needs 1,000 feet beneath him or the chute won't open. Before tonight's briefing ended, planners told every crew in the room that 10% of them weren't coming back. Then they said no search and rescue aircraft would be available. You go down over Hanoi. You're on your own. Certain aircraft is Charcoal 01. 60 seconds from bomb release over the Yenvi rail yards. 2 SA-2 missiles punch through the fuselage from behind. No warning on the threat receiver. No lock on tone. Every instrument dies at once. The co-pilot starts screaming. They've got the pilot. They've got the pilot. The EWO's voice. Is anybody alive? Is anybody alive? A certain person looks through a porthole and sees fire in the forward wheel. Well, he pulls the ejection handle and fires downward into the night over the most heavily defended city on Earth. His chute doesn't open until 15,000 feet, 20,000 feet of free fall in the dark. On the ground, a woman smashes a rock into his face. Militia with AK-47s keep the crowd from killing him. They strip his flight suit, boots, and socks, leave him in his underwear in December cold, and march him to the Hanoi Hilton. The pilot, Lieutenant Colonel Donald Rissy, dead. The gunner, Master Sergeant Walt Ferguson, dead. The co-pilot, First Lieutenant Robert Thomas, dead. Thomas had a young son back home, a boy named Derek, who would never know what happened inside Charcoal 01, who would grow up shaped entirely by an absence. Night 1. 10 more to go. The crews called the B-52 the Buff. Big ugly fat fellow or something worse, depending on who was talking. A Cold War nuclear bomber shoved into a jungle war it was never built for. The men who flew it knew that. At 30,000 feet, a buff can't be seen or heard from the ground. The bombs fall faster than sound travels downward. They detonate before the noise of the engines reaches the surface. Westmoreland confirmed it. The first indication the Viet Cong had that the B-52s were there was when the jungle erupted around them. Truong Nhu Tang, the Viet Cong's Minister of Justice, wrote about being underneath. The first few times I experienced a B-52 attack, it seemed as I strained to press myself into the bunker floor that I had been caught in the apocalypse. The terror was complete. One lost control of bodily functions as the mind screamed incomprehensible orders to get out. He went back to where his camp had been. It was not just that things were destroyed in some awesome way. They had ceased to exist. You would come back to where your lean-to and bunker had been, your home, and there would simply be nothing there. 3 buffs in formation saturated a box 1.2 miles long by 0.6 of a mile wide. A single big belly B-52D carried 108 bombs, 60,000 pounds. One sortie equaled 6 World War II B-7 loads. When captured, NBA soldiers were asked what they feared most. The answer never changed. B-52s first always between June 65 and August 73 buffs flew 126,615 sorties, total American tonnage, on Indochina 7. 66 million tons more than 312 times the Second World War. B-52s alone delivered an estimated 2.66 to 3 and 12 million tons, 1 aircraft type, 2 bases, more than the entire American effort against Germany and Japan combined. Robert McNamara broke at his farewell luncheon in February 68. An aide watched him reel off tonnage statistics. Then his voice cracked and tears came as he spoke of the futility, the crushing futility of the air war. The bombing continued for 5 more years. The men who dropped those bombs spent 12 to 14 hours inside a pressurized aluminum tube, Guam to Target and back, refueling midair over the South China Sea. They chain-smoked, ate cold sandwiches, wrote letters sitting on a flying fuel tank. One pilot said it had all the excitement of being a long-haul truck driver without being able to stop for coffee. One navigator flew 363 sorties across 8 tours. Nobody on the ground ever saw his face. A Russian toller sat off Guam the entire war, watching every takeoff, giving the enemy up to 8 hours warning. Then in December 72, North Vietnamese negotiators walked out of the Paris peace talks. Nixon gave Hanoi 72 hours to return. They ignored him, and everything changed. Nixon's order maximum effort repeat maximum effort of B-52 strikes in the Hanoi/H high areas 729 buffs orders in 11 days 15,000 tons waiting for them SA-2 missiles 35 feet long Mach 4 with warheads that killed anything within 300 yards North Vietnam, fired 140 of them for 3 consecutive nights. SACE headquarters in Omaha ordered identical tactics. Same ingress, same altitude, same post-target turn. That turn was the kill zone. Formation broke apart. ECM antennas swung away from threat radars, and a 120-knot tailwind flipped into a headwind. Slow, visible, unjammed, hanging in the sky. Brigadier General Glenn Sullivan, the commander at WW2. The post-target turn was the murder point. 5 of 6 shootons on night 3 happened in that turn. Captain Strickland confronted the briefers. Who was planning such stupid tactics and why? SAC headquarters in Omaha. Common routes chosen for ease of planning. Strickland shot back. The enemy is using your plan for ease of tracking and shooton. Schneiderman called it so much like the British in the Revolutionary War. All lined up marching in straight rows that it was bizarre. 6 buffs down on night 3. 7% attrition. Men weren't just dying because of missiles. They were dying because of planning decisions made at a desk in Nebraska. At WW2, Pat Custer ran the USO. If they had 2 wooden boards nailed over the door and an X, it meant that the crew had been shot down. No ceremony, just an empty room and airmen loading personal belongings into a trunk. After night 3, tactics changed. B-52 GS pulled from Hanoi. Routes randomized. On December 26th, all 120 buffs hit targets within 15 minutes, not 4 hours. SAM sites became targets. 2/3 of the missile inventory was destroyed. Final night, 0 losses. In the middle of that, 18-year-old Airman First Class Albert Moore was sitting in the tail of a B-52D called Diamond Lil. Christmas Eve 72. His combat report. I observed a target on my radar scope 8 o'clock low at 8 miles. When the target got to 2,000 yards, I notified the crew that I was firing. 800 rounds, 3 bursts. The MiG-21 exploded. Last confirmed kill by a bomber tail gunner in the history of air warfare. That record will stand forever. On the way home, I wasn't sure whether I should be happy or sad. You know, there was a guy in that MiG. I'm sure he would have wanted to fly home, too. But it was a case of him or my crew. He was 18. Silver Star. He died in 2009 at 55. While those bombs fell, men locked in the Hanoi Hilton for years heard them through cell walls. At first, they thought it was thunder. Then they recognized the rhythm. Colonel John Flynn, the senior-ranking prisoner, tapped a message down the line. Pack your bags. I don't know when we're going home, but we're going home. Robert Thomas was not among the 33 crew members who came home in March. His son Derek was 9. A mile from the Raylards, Com Street was gone. Nguyen Van Chau came back to find nothing. People were crying and calling out for their loved ones in the dark. I lost my family that night. Chudahoa heard a voice trapped beneath a collapsed shelter. Please help me, and could do nothing. Her husband's body was found cut through by a fragment. 278, dead on 1 street. 91 women, 55 children. The PS celebrating and the children dying happened the same night. Same bombs dropped by crews who never saw either one. At Kaysan it worked. January through April 68, 6,000 Marines under Colonel Loons besieged by 3 NVA divisions. 40,000 troops digging toward the perimeter. Westmoreland named the air campaign Niagara. 60 buffs a day, bombing within a 000 m of friendly lines. Colonel Stevenson, who flew 27 Kazan missions. Those guys wanted us dropping as close as possible. And every time we went in and dropped, they said, closer. Marines 1,000 m out felt the percussion waves in their chests, powerful enough to push a standing man backward. The ground shook in long progressive lines as 1,000-pounders walked across the hillsides. Afterward, the jungle was gone. Just raw dirt cratered so deeply that from the air the hills looked like the surface of the moon. An NVA prisoner said 3/4 of his regiment was wiped out by a single raid at Unlock 4 years later. They ran a buff every 55 minutes for 30 hours, 5,000 enemy dead, but the buff couldn't kill what it couldn't find. Michael McCarthy flew 156 sorties across 3 tours, 21 consecutive nights in one stretch. May 70. Most went to the Ho Chi Minh Trail, 12 hours round trip. Refuel over the Philippines, turn west toward Laos, and fly over Black Jungle. No lights below, no roads visible, just a dark canopy for hundreds of miles. The radar navigator would call the countdown. The bombs would fall. The aircraft would shudder and go light as 30 tons dropped into nothing. And then there was only the drone of engines on the way home. McCarthy never saw what he hit. Couldn't have. There was nothing to see. 3 million tons dropped on Laos across 7 campaigns. The trail was never cut. The jungle grew back. The NVA kept walking south. The 7th Air Force commander eventually admitted what every pilot already knew. They were bombing forests. The trail was still there every morning. Still there when Saigon fell. The accords were signed on January 27, 73. Negroponte, the American negotiator. We bombed them into accepting our concessions. 15 buffs didn't come home. 24 civilians were dead. Hanoi called it Dien Bien Phu in the air. 76 B-52Hs still fly. Airframes from the early 60s fitted with new engines expected to serve until the 2050s. 100 years for a machine that was built to end the world. Robert Certain survived the Hilton. Released after 101 days, became an Episcopal priest, wrote a book about forgiveness. Robert Thomas's son, Derek, played 11 seasons for the Kansas City Chiefs, 9 Pro Bowls, Hall of Fame, died at 33. Every profile mentions the father he lost, the co-pilot of Charcoal 01, killed on the first night of the Christmas bombings. A man remembered mostly as the reason his son played the way he did. 126,000 sorties, 7.66 million tons. Everyone released by men who never saw where they landed. In Hanoi's Inoka village, the landing gear of a buff shot down on December 27th sits half submerged in Hu Tip Lake. The metal has rusted the color of dried blood. A tree has grown through the fuselage. The water is still. Children walk past it on their way to school. Nobody explains it to them. They already know what it is.